Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And I am so tickled pink. That's the best expression. I was thinking of how I would introduce you, Laura. And I can just say tickled to death because Laura is somebody I've gotten to know really well in the last 90 days. She is a recent graduate of my second half Spark School. And in fact, we had our last call last night. Of course, it's a lifetime situation access type of thing. So she's not going to go away completely from my life, but the kind of intense learning process is done. And I am so amazed and grateful for the way that Laura has shown up, that she invested in herself 3 months ago. And I wanted her to come on because I think her story will resonate with a lot of people who are at a point in life where they recognize they need change, but they're stuck. And she was truly stuck. And so I'm going to let her chime in here in a second, but just a quick background of Laura is that she is an empty nester, like most of the people that follow me, and she's a cancer survivor. I'm sure she'll talk about that. Long-term cancer survivor. And she was uprooted. Her kids are grown, and she was uprooted from her home base, really, the city that she loved and raised her kids, and moved last May. And when we met in a workshop I did it was like late September, she was really stuck, and I'm just gonna let turn it over and let her talk about it. But she is a different person. I mean, when you hear from her, you're just gonna not believe that she was this stuck and kind of introverted, I guess, because she was not meeting people and she was feeling disconnected. And so, anyways, welcome to the program, Laura. And why don't you just share a little bit about where you were last summer? Let's start there.
Thank you, Lori. So last summer, I moved in May during COVID, which was such a difficult time for everybody as it was, and the collective consciousness with the upcoming election and all this collective feeling was really heavy on my heart. And then when I moved, I was very fearful for the first time, and I'm not usually like that. And I was very stuck because I was stuck in my home, but I didn't know anybody in the new community. And so I was trying to get out and enjoy the air. And in May, I was so intent on fixing up my house and going through boxes. And so when my house was set up by September, that's when the depression set in. I was like, wow, I really need someone to help me pull me out of this. I was gaining weight and I just didn't recognize myself of who I was, because normally I'm really a positive person and I've overcome a lot of adversity in my life. And so that was it. I was feeling really stuck, not knowing where to turn to. And then I found Lori on um, my feed on Instagram and found out she had a workshop. And I was running even late. The workshop had started and I was on the day of action. So it just pivoted my life the minute I met her and got on this workshop. And she was talking about, well, you're always at the right place at the right time. And I was thinking, wow, she's like speaking directly to me. And so I resonated with her immediately. And then I actually thought, wow, I'm going to take action. I'm not going to have any more fear. So I took my bike and went across the street and I met my neighbors for the first time and found out that they call their farm Forever Blessed Farm. And Forever Blessed Farm is full of horses and all these farm animals. And the mother has two raised children, a 15-year-old son and an 18-year-old daughter who married at 18 and now is 19, has her first grandchild. And then she just recently adopted 5 children. So she's very busy and very active. And I wanted to ride horses, so we did a deal. And so I've been teaching her son how to read. He has dyslexia. And
Yeah, and
then
so
I
I
just
want to interject for a second
yeah.
because during this workshop, which I did back in the fall, I did one in the summer too, but it was like a 5 day where I did training each day. And when you came in, I think that was like day 5, and I always hesitate letting people in late, but yet at the same time, I know I don't want them to lose out, and so it makes me happy that, like, here you are, you joined late, and if I had closed the doors on day 1, then you wouldn't have been able to get in. But I remember you saying, and I looked back to see some of the comments because I save a lot of the comments from the group, and you said that you were going to manifest meeting new neighbors, and then you actually did meet the neighbor, and then I think you posted a picture of you went horseback riding. It probably wasn't that day, maybe a few days later. But yeah, so you one of the things I ask people is, have you ever manifested something, and what do you want to manifest? And you manifested that, and it actually happened, so that was really cool.
Yeah, it was exciting because I had that intention to meet neighbors. So then that day I rode my bike, met the neighbors across the street, and then I saw my neighbor at the mailbox, invited him and his wife for dinner, had them for dinner. And then I met a third neighbor down the street. So I met three different neighbors in one day. So I really took it to heart. And then it was like it opened up the door by inviting people into my home. So it was really, and then it just kept going. And then I realized there was a yoga studio in the just 5 miles from my house. And I thought it was closed because of COVID. So here, then I found this person that teaches yoga. And I've been doing yoga probably since I was 18, so most of my life. And um, I just couldn't believe everything was in my community. And she teaches massage, and one thing Lori had us also do was practice self-care. So, and I hadn't been doing that either because I was in a really funk. And so it was nice. I scheduled massage right away and have been doing that monthly. Today, like I took a nice warm hot bath, and I used to not take care of myself as well. And now I used to never cook for myself. There's so many things that I've incorporated in my life just through Lori. Also, just I'm learning something new every day. I'm reading positive books and saying these wonderful affirmations. And
Yeah, you told
um,
me, I couldn't believe it. Was it 60 books you've read in the last 3 months? Is that what you told me?
yes, yes,
That's
yeah,
crazy. And
yes,
that's one of the things that I teach my students, is to learn something new every day, and to, like, capture it, like, before you go to bed at night. What was one thing you learned today? And it can just be a realization that you had, right? Because sometimes that's just an awareness of something new. But, like, you took it to heart, and you've grown so much through the personal growth. I mean, a lot of the books I think were just, enlightening your spirit. So, one of the things that is interesting to me, and I'd love to hear your take on it, is that here you had this tool of yoga that could really help you, but yet you weren't applying it. And is that just because you just didn't have the motivation?
yeah. I think I was just so depressed. I couldn't get myself out of bed. I I was like not getting up in the morning, and I didn't have any purpose. I was feeling just like I didn't have any energy, any drive to do anything. I was, yeah, it just wasn't myself at all. I was really in a whole dark place. And yeah, I wasn't using my tools at all. And I think it was because my thoughts were so negative, and I was in a downward spiral of just this negativity. And I find that in the world, we can, be trained to fear from just the things going on. And I was letting all these negative thoughts just take over and almost paralyzing me. I felt paralyzed that I couldn't like function. So, and I
Yeah, and
couldn't
yeah.
think
Mhm.
clear. Yeah, I wasn't thinking clear. I wasn't I wasn't eating well. I
Yeah,
wasn't
food
taking
plays a big part in how we
yeah.
feel. I've learned this through good nutrition does
Hmm.
wonders for, boosting a mental clarity, getting rid of brain fog and that sort of thing. So one of the things you also said, because I like to, in my workshops, connect with people, and a lot of my workshops are around finding more purpose. And so it's like, so what do you know about yourself? sometimes are the questions. And one of the things you said was that you like to help people, and having been a teacher, so you help people. That's what your nature is. That's what innately is what you love. But you had nobody to help, so that you felt this like. And when you say you don't have purpose, it was clearly from this, disengagement and kind of what you love to do, innately what you love to do. So one of the things that, I do this thing on limiting beliefs. I just did a workshop on it, and it's interesting how much these hold us back. But what you said, and I wrote it down because I wanted to share it, is your limiting belief was and this is the thought that comes up, that these are thoughts that don't help us. They keep us stuck and they limit us. But it says, I am useless at planning. I get overwhelmed and distracted and often do not know where to start. And so clearly you've overcome that limiting belief. So what is the belief you now have that has kind of erased that belief?
Mhm. So I basically am healthy, I'm vibrant, have vibrant energy, and my mind is clear. And when my mind is clear, I can accomplish anything. So I can really, I've been setting goals, and it's just I'm hitting every mark. And even like when I first met you, even though I was a yoga teacher, I wasn't practicing, but immediately I started a morning routine that I have been doing really since the end of September, and I haven't failed, where I've been really getting into meditating every day and journaling and doing a gratitude journal. And then gratitude just lifted me out of this depression like anything. I was just really just realize how lucky I am to be where I am and in this point in my life. And then I started looking at things, and it was almost like a light switch went on in my brain. Things just flipped from meeting you. It was like going from feeling small to feeling unlimited, to from feeling frustrated and not knowing where to start, as to having these small successes every morning. So the morning routine started, and then it built on itself, and I became much more confident every day. And I noticed after like a month of doing these things, I was realizing how happy I became. And then you're right, I started feeling connected to the community, and started meeting people, and went to like a flower shop and have been getting flowers to lift me up, but have been helping her. She has a new business, and met the person that owns the pizza place, and just, have been supporting local businesses, and then just been, going to the library, getting a lot of books and reading and reading. I didn't realize that I could read so much in a couple of months. So I just been really excited that I'm focused to do so much more. I'm getting so much more accomplished in a day. And I notice I wake up excited. I tend to be very ritualistic as far as going to bed at the same time and getting up, but I get up earlier than I used to. I used to get up at 7, and now it's like 5:30. I'm ready to get up, but I'm going to bed between 9:30 and 10, and I've noticed that that's probably about the right amount of sleep for me. And I love the mornings because it's so quiet. Now my husband gets up at 6, so it gives me just a half hour ahead of him when during the work week. But on the weekends, he likes to sleep in. So I just love the quiet. And it's funny because I love the sound of the birds in the morning, and that's something I love. Is there's a lot, I'm surrounded by nature, so sometimes I can just hear the birds singing in the morning, and I don't know if I was paying attention to that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. I
And
mean, that part of me is like thinking how you were so disconnected that you weren't even paying attention to what was around you, and
exactly.
you reconnected in that way. It's just amazing. I want to talk a little bit about the ripple effect, because I'm so passionate about is when I help somebody else light. I mean, you did the work, so I'm not going to take credit for the work. I was just the you saw me as a way to kind of like jolt you. And so you did the work. And what I love is that when somebody lights up, they light up the world. And I say it, I mean, first it starts near and then it spreads. And so I want you to share the story about the boy that you're helping, that you're mentoring, that you're tutoring, and what you told me about his grandfather. So can you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, so this boy's he has been homeschooled all his life. He's 15. He's never learned to read. He's extremely gifted. He's really good at math, and he knows so much because he's has an interest in animals, and he watches all the National Geographics, and he's so smart. When he does read, he anticipates, he knows the storyline. He understands vocabulary. He speaks very eloquently, and just in the short amount of time I've met him, he has learned so much because he has a lot of support at home. His mother works with him every night. She reads to him, but she couldn't believe just the small pieces that he's putting together. And it's just a visual, kinesthetic, and auditory piece. So he's learning to put the pieces together. It's called Orton Gillingham. It's a way of teaching kids with dyslexia or special education. And when I was a teacher, I used to teach that in the schools. And so it was really exciting to find something that worked. And then I met his grandfather yesterday.
Well, let me back
And
up for a second. So
yeah,
this is the lady from the Forever Bliss Farm, the
bless. Yes.
Forever
Yes.
Blessed Farm,
Yes.
and so you worked out a thing where I'll teach your son how, to improve his reading skills and math skills, but I if I can ride your horses. And so you had this little bartering thing, which I love,
Yeah.
and then you both benefited. So I just want to give that little backstory of how that came out, because that was the result of you taking action that one day.
Yeah, and so where I live, we're on top of a hill with 10 acres, and it's pretty secluded. I'm the only house up at the top of the hill. And then there are farms down at the bottom of the hill. But at the end of my property, it runs into 900 acres that's used for hunting, and it's open during the seasons that's not hunting. And so, and of course, when it was warmer, so we were riding horses almost every day. It was really nice in the fall, and there's this huge view, but into 900 acres worth of land, and it's just rolling hills here. It's just, it's really pretty. I started to realize how lucky I am, and the sunrises and the sunsets are bar none anything from where I live. And yeah, so when I met Jace's grandfather, it was yesterday. He was out at the farm helping, and he came over and he shook my hand and he looked me in the eye and he said, "I am so grateful that you're helping my son. You see, I have dyslexia, but I didn't have the same support." He said, "I never learned to read. I was actually held back 3 years in a row." And he said, "My teacher didn't want to let me move on until I learned to read." And finally, she said, "You'll never learn to read." So he's been carrying this limiting belief all his life, thinking that he'll never learn to read. And he never did. And he became a factory worker. He's really good with his hands. And it's interesting because he compensated by not reading, by becoming good at working hard and just working in a factory, but working with his hands on a farm. He knows all about farming. And so it was really interesting listening to him, but you could see how hurt he felt inside still. And he's probably in his early 70s. He's not that old, to have been carrying that burden that he couldn't read. And so
Yeah, and
just,
I think
yeah.
that too, because when you told me that story, what I was thinking is that in some ways he might feel responsible, like he left this genetic uh, defect with his grandson,
Yeah.
and for him to see the change in his grandson, I can't imagine how amazing he feels, and how blessed he feels that you came into his life and have made such a difference.
Yeah, and it's good about teaching them about community service too, because I think when you are a blessing to others, and that's really how I've tried to live my life, your life is blessed 100-fold. So it's just the more you reap, the more you sow kind of thing. And I have always been really blessed all my life. And so it's interesting. We talked about the fact that I had cancer and I'm 20 years cancer free at this point. But in the past, it seemed like I used to always run and was driven. I want my career. I want to be a teacher, da, 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 da. And I was just so a busy doer, do,
Well, and
and
let
that's,
and if you can
yeah.
get into a little bit more, because you had cancer to the point of it really changing your life.
Yeah, so it was endometrial. It was uterine. It wasn't something that they would see in a 40-year-old. So I was bleeding a lot. And then it went up behind the heart lymph, so it had spread. So they weren't sure whether I was going to live or not. And so I pretty much was in shock at first because I had a 7-year-old um, son and a 10-year-old daughter at the time. And my son was having nightmares of me dying. And he wanted to know about death. And we had a lot of discussions that we've never had before. And so I told him to think about, the fact that because we lived on a farm with like 3 acres, and he understood. He had tadpoles and he would watch them, change into frogs. But I said it's kind of like a butterfly. Like I'm going to be in my cocoon, I'm going to be sick for a little while, but then I'm going to be this beautiful butterfly. And I actually took him to a butterfly show at the Crone Conservatory in Cincinnati, and it was really funny because I hadn't driven. I had my full hysterectomy, and I just think it's even a testimony to how people are, but also even listening. So after the cancer, I felt like I've been given the gift of just becoming more still and things come to me. And I don't know why, but I felt like I wasn't supposed to go get money. I was running out of time. I wasn't going to go to the ATM, but for some reason, the butterfly show only needed money. So I thought, well, maybe I can become a member and just charge it. So I went into the membership place and just said to the lady, hey, do you have memberships to get into the butterfly show? And she's like, no, ma'am. And I said, okay, thank you. So I walked away, and my son and I were just playing outside. And all of a sudden, she ran to me and said, I'm so glad I caught you before you left. And she just said, angels do exist, handed me 2 tickets to get into the butterfly show. And I thought, why did she do that? Because she didn't even know my story. She didn't know anything. And she said, I don't know. She goes, when you left, I felt like your son needed to see that butterfly show. I didn't know why. So after the show, he kept trying to catch these butterflies, and it was really amazing. There was this handicapped man sitting. We were by a bench, and he had this butterfly sitting on his finger, and he passed it to my son, and he gave him the butterfly, and I said, hey, Will, look, angels do exist. And he's like, is this the butterfly you're going to be? It was a real pretty blue
Mm.
one.
Oh my
So it
gosh.
was just,
I
yeah.
mean, this is a new story I have not heard from you, and it just like is making me cry. So
Yeah.
powerful. So
So, but I
powerful.
think it's interesting how somehow I'm being silent more, and things are coming to me, and um in a ways that I this probably has happened all my life, but I just wasn't aware of it. Like, but I'm more in tune with it. I think we all, like, sometimes the phone rings and you kind of know, oh, that's my mom calling, or that's my friend calling, or we just sometimes know things before we know them. But there is something to listening to that inner voice and that intuition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's funny you should bring this up because I'm writing the training for my upcoming workshop, and one of the videos is going to be about exactly that, silence.
mhm.
And yeah, how
Yeah,
I
and
did.
it's
Yeah.
funny because sometimes I don't know how things are going to be, and that's what I like about you. Had the full package, and for that, be, do, has, have is the big thing that switched to my head, because if you want something, you got to actually be that person first, and you have to step into this uncomfortable person to become that, and then you attract all these people into your life out of nowhere. This happened when I sold my house. I had to, my husband moved to West Virginia, and we didn't even know where he was going to live. And that was another manifestation. We ended up, I heard the words couch surfing while I was being quiet, and got on an app and learned to navigate that. Didn't know how to do it correctly. And I thought, well, I better be more specific, because I was saying, I need a place to stay between this week and this week. And then I'm like, I need a place to stay February 18th. And, and then I met someone that my husband ended up living with for over a year. He
While you were
rented their room.
transitioning to the new place, right?
Yeah.
So
And
you basically just words came to you and
yes.
couch surfing, and so it prompted you. See, and you did this stuff before, but it just goes to show you we have these I would say ebbs and flows in life, and sometimes, it's hard to get out of the ebb. So also, so I want to go back and talk a little bit more about the ripple effect, because what I tell people is the first people are the people you live with, right? And the people you love. So, this little boy and his grandfather are a little bit further from that like spectrum. But like, I love that you told me about your husband and how he is responding and how there's a little more romance in your life. And you just saw your kids at Christmas and they saw a big difference. So, can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah. So my husband, since we moved, was wanting me to feel more at home here. And then he has seen such a change in me. And what I noticed is he started being like more interactive, and he could tell that I needed to get out. So he's been surprising me. We've been going on hikes and trips. And then he doesn't like tell me what we're doing. It's all kind of surprise. And he's never done that. We've been married 33 years. And so it's developed this really intimacy, because it's really we're relying on each other more. And I through Lori, I've learned how to eat better, and he likes that I'm cooking for myself for the first time. And he couldn't believe, because he's been actually enjoying the dinners sometimes. He can't believe it's me cooking. And so, but he is so proud of me. And so I see that that's brought us so much closer. And so, yeah, my love life has really increased. I've been much more romance and happier with our relationship. And then my kids kind of surprised me at Christmas. They were sitting there. We were going around, and they said one thing. My daughter said to me, "Mom, I just want you to know your brother and I are so like happy for you." Both of them each gave their input on the changes they've seen in me. And I was able to lose 10 pounds before Christmas. And so they noticed that immediate, and they wanted to know more about that. And then my daughter was just saying, "You know what, Mom, you're just like a new person." She just said, "I used to worry about you getting older, that I would have to take care of you and you were going to be a burden. And I'm sorry I felt that way, but you're like proving me wrong." She's like, because I just turned 60 last year, and I certainly don't look 60 because I do a lot of fun things. But she said, "Mom, I'm not
Where are
worried
your
about
wrinkles? I'd like to know.
it." So I just love that she said, "I'm not worried about you, Mom, and I'm proud of you, and thank you for taking such good care of yourself and just embracing this new community." She knew it was really hard at first. And so she could really see the change. And then my son as well. He's 28 and she's 31, and she's newly married. She's been married a year. And so it was just nice to hear
Yeah.
those words.
Yeah, it's so easy. I think, we just tend to want to go back to where we were. And that was, being a mom and having our kids with us, but we can't. And so the only
Mm-mm.
thing we can do is create new. And I love what she said, because not only are you not going to be a burden, but you're going to be a model for her of how to live as a, you know, in your second half. And I love that, and we would want that for our kids, right? We would want our kids to be happy and living their best life. And so, we should want that for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think another piece with my husband is we worked it out because I used to do part-time jobs all the time. I used to nanny and I used to babysit and I used to even house clean. And he didn't want me to do any of that anymore. So it was just so freeing to come here. And I was so busy all the time. So that was another thing. I stopped, doing all these extra things I used to do. And so it's brought us closer because he showed me financially just how well we're doing. And we've been working together as a team on our finances, but we used to never talk about those things, and it's becoming like little successes every month with that as well. So it's just like all the pieces of my life are coming together all at once, and I think that meant a lot to my daughter, the financial piece too, because she knows we were able to give a lot more this year to them at Christmas, and she was very grateful. And so my son as well. They're like, "Wow, mom, thank you." It was a very abundant feeling to help my children in a different way. So it was really, and to feel the pressure lifted where we're almost paid off all the college loans at this point, and just to see the fact that we are in a good position to retire. My husband's 65 and he's hoping to retire at 70. He looks young too. He's a rock climber. He's got a small frame. He's a real strong rock climber.
And plus with all the walking and you do, and she has these
Yeah.
beautiful pictures of sunsets that she posts on Facebook. So, one of the things that I tend to speak a lot about on my podcast, because a lot of people come on as guests have taken their purpose into creating a business. And so, one of the things that I like about your story is it doesn't necessarily, purpose is what fills you up, the activities that light you up and give you more purpose. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make a business out of it. And so, I love that that is kind of the example that you're sharing today. And so, as we wind down and close up this episode, I would love to know, or what would you like anybody who's listening, who's kind of in a place like you were 6 months ago, what can you tell them? What hope can you give them? What's your best advice?
So my best advice is to seek help. Don't try to do it alone. Um, if you can get a mentor, or if you can get into the Spark School, that's even better. So
Thanks for the
I
plug. But yeah, enrollment's opening in the beginning of February. But yeah, I think, yeah, finding
and
somebody
maybe
who, yeah,
finding some joy, and maybe even if you're not sure, like I hadn't ridden horses in years, but I grew up riding them, but finding things that light you up. For me, I started riding a bike around the community, started um, just randomly meeting people. So and of course it's social distance with mask, meeting people just to walk or just to do anything that's outside, and then just I've started getting goals about discovering all these trails in the area. We have a unique area here. There's a rail trail and it goes for miles. And so I've gone to all different avenues and explored this trail, and so it's probably 71 miles or so. And I haven't done all the mileage on it, but it gave me some goals to like really get to know the area. And then there's this beautiful park 25 minutes from here. And so just getting myself out, and they have kayaking. So that's another on my to-do list. And but maybe just start journaling, start writing. I loved what you had us do. You had us come up with a list of at least 50, and mine's turned into 200 things that I want to manifest and do. And so it just keeps happening. Like I am actually going to Florida in another day, even though COVID's bad. I just wear my mask, and I try to be safe. I wash my hands a lot in the airport, and I take only direct flights. But my folks are 86 and 87, so I try to see them. And my mother has a good example as well. She plays tennis 3 times a week. She walks every day. She swims an hour every day. And then she starts her day. She loves to read. She loves to do. And there's so many things she's limited in doing because of COVID, but she's constantly growing as well. So
and I
I've
love
had
how, because you started out talking about how fearful you had let fear kind of take over, and how you're not exhibiting any of that. You know,
Mm-mm.
you're being safe, but you're not letting it stop you from seeing your parents when you don't know how much longer they'll be around. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the other thing that I think really helped you is because like the doing things was so hard for you because you were saying you couldn't get motivated, but the gratitude, I think the gratitude started first for you. And once you
exactly.
started seeing and feeling that which you weren't noticing, that started to give you a little bit, don't you think?
Absolutely. And then also, you had a strong belief that we could do this if we just committed. And just having a cheerleader like Lori, that's what I'm saying, having a mentor, she's been a wonderful mentor. I felt like not only learning so much from her, but also having like-minded people in a group where we got together and we had accountability. Accountability is real helpful. And just learning from not only how you talk to me, but then when you were talking to others, I was feeling the exact same thing of what they were feeling. And so I could relate. And then we were helping each other in the group get over hurdles that we were having. So it was really a group and a team effort. It took a village to get us to move to this new place. But I love that. I love that I'm still a part of your team for
Yeah.
life. That
Yeah,
we've,
and I think too, I think what's powerful about that is you kind of all come in at the same place where you feel stuck, and then you start to witness people getting unstuck, and you realize the possibilities exist for you to do the same if you just start to do the things that is working for them. Yeah. So, and not resist it. But anyways, thank you so much for sharing your story. I was so adamant about you getting on my podcast and talking because so many people need to hear that, and so many people need to realize that it's not complicated to get unstuck. You just need to free yourself and like use silence, use gratitude, find somebody, and online it's so easy to find somebody that you resonate with and connect, and that will help a lot if you need some support like that. So thank you so much, and enjoy your week with your folks.
thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.